Hello and welcome to the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. We are back joining you on Friday, October 11th. I'm tuning in here from London. Michael is back in Chicago, but we're still doing it. You know what? I'm making it work. It's 5 o'clock here. And so thanks for joining us a little bit later for you guys too. I know it's 11 o'clock back home, a little bit later than we usually do, but thanks for tuning in. If you're joining us live, we really appreciate you guys. I see some of you guys in the chat already. Michael, how you doing this morning?
I'm good. I'm good. You're in the future right now, so that's kind of weird, I'm sure, for all of the Chicago people. But I think we're good. I think everyone's really interested to see just what is your London experience like so far, Sean?
Yeah, I just said how you doing this morning out of habit, and then I had to think about it for a second because it's not morning for me, but it is for you. So I was right. It is morning. Okay, cool,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, no, it's been good. I mean, the Bears are practicing way out of the city. It's an hour plus drive, basically in the countryside out there, and I should apologize, guys. I don't know if I'm going to cut out in and out here. Obviously, I'm at the hotel. I'm using hotel Wi-Fi, so if I do cut out, we'll do our best to make it work. But yeah, the Bears are practicing way out there, and I guess that's good for them because there's no distractions. Like they're just here for work, and that's about it. I think this evening is maybe the only free time they're going to get with the day off tomorrow, and obviously the game coming up on Sunday. But yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's like they're secluded and they got this nice little manor thing where there's the whole big grounds and stuff. And I know, Michael, I'm sure you saw the pictures I posted of where they're practicing. It's pretty unique situation.
It seems crazy. You just got, I forget who tweeted it, one of the Bears reporters, but like you've got a beautiful English countryside and you got like future playing. It's just like very contrasting things where you got something that I'm sure, even like 10 or 50 years ago, people would be like, what are you talking about? What is this American football? What are we listening to right now out here in the country?
Yeah, it's on a golf course, and I see Robert asking that in the chat. And thank you guys, as always, for joining us. Hit the thumbs up if you're with us live on YouTube. That's a great way to support the show. Yeah, there's a golf course there. I know I was kind of like chuckling with some other people. Like, it'd be pretty crazy if you were out there just golfing on your Friday morning, and the Chicago Bears are practicing like just up the hill. And just thinking about that's wild because like some of these people over here in England probably have no idea who any of these Bears players are. It's like, what, American football? What's that? Like it's a pretty cool situation. I will say there were a ton of Bears fans. I think my whole flight here was Bears fans. So they are going to pack this place on Sunday.
Yeah, I was kind of curious, just what is obviously the Bears are out there, but like in London, what do you see a lot of Chicago people, Jacksonville people, are just like, Americans who are there for the game because they just want to, it's a good excuse to go to London.
Yeah, so I flew out, I am losing track of the days. What days? I flew out on Wednesday, and there were a ton of Bears fans. Now, once I've been here, I haven't seen a whole lot of Bears fans. Maybe saw one or two on the train yesterday.
Right.
Nothing crazy. I gotta be honest, I don't think I've seen any Jaguar stuff. But you know what I did see is a taxi cab that was decked out in Minnesota Vikings stuff. Like it was painted Vikings colors with the logo and stuff. It went by me so fast, and I wasn't really paying attention when I was just walking back to the hotel today. I didn't get a chance to snap a photo, but so I think we're going to see a lot more. I'm sure the NFL fans will be out tonight, Friday evening, and out and about tomorrow on Saturday.
Yeah, it seems like it'll be really interesting, just the whole positioning and that kind of. Did you ever get was the Bears going out to the country? Is that pretty much just to avoid distractions, or?
I'm sure that there is. I don't exactly know how it works, but I would imagine the league is involved. And somebody in my mentions this week was saying that the Jets were at the same place. So I don't know if the NFL just has a couple of spots that they book for the weekend. Maybe they have some long-standing relationship with that place out there, and then they just book it the weekends they need it. But certainly it helps. I mean, I would think that sounds like the most Matt Eberflus thing ever. Like, come to London and go stay an hour outside the city. We were all chuckling too. I'm sure Bears fans heard Matt Eberflus. I think it was Wednesday when he was asked about has he gotten out to see anything, do anything? And he says, I was watching film on Tuesday from 6:30 to 10 o'clock at night. It's like, oh man,
football guy over there.
That poor man. Yeah. I mean, he sounded excited about it. So that's whatever's your cup of tea, right?
It seems I've heard, or from what I've seen from you and from others, it seems like everyone's really embracing the experience. Like they're really liking the, just being over there, like the whole, English stuff. And and I know you guys, I think you guys were at a soccer game the other day, right? So it's good to see. It seems like they're obviously focused on football, but it also seems like they're embracing the experience of, being over there and, being together.
Yeah, and I saw on Instagram a couple of Bears players were at that soccer game. England was playing Greece at Wembley Stadium last night. Some of us on the beat went over there after work, and I think it was like Bill Murray, a couple of practice squad guys. Nobody that you would be worried about staying out too late or anything, but a couple of guys. I think Bill Murray and Austin Reed and maybe some other guys were at the game too. Super exciting. That was my first time ever seeing a soccer game live, at least not like an MLS game or something.
Right.
And man, that atmosphere was lit. It was insane.
And it was like, wasn't it like a friendly or like a Nations League game? Like it wasn't like for qualifiers.
This wasn't like a big tournament. No, this was, but they were going crazy. England scored, I don't know, it was in the 80-something minute. Greece was up a goal and England scored to tie it, and that place went crazy. It was unlike anything I've experienced in sports before.
Right. Yeah, it's very interesting just to see what that experience is like. Obviously, I would love to go to like a Premier League game or something like that, but it's interesting to see. Obviously, that soccer is the number one sport in the world, but I'm interested to see how that kind of translates over to the football side of like American football side of things, especially for like European fans, like whether they like do chants throughout the games. I know that Jaquan Brisk, I think it was it was Roma Dunze after Sunday's game was like, I'm excited to see like what kind of chants they bring into the game. So I'm curious to see what that atmosphere is going to be like, whether they bring like that soccer atmosphere over to like American football on Sunday.
Yeah, it's from what I hear, it's very different. And Robert in the chat, our good friend and listener Robert, who is over here in the UK, says, "Boo England! I'm Welsh, so England are our Packers." Robert, I'm in your time zone, so that's cool. we're closer together here.
Right.
Rick says Nations League is a big deal. I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to soccer. So I know it's not the World Cup, but So I actually, when I started talking about it, I'm like, oh man, I can't get deep into soccer. I was listening to the kids in the row behind me. They were really funny. Obviously they had British accents, and they were just picking apart everything England was doing. And after the game, somebody else was like, yeah, those kids didn't know what they were talking about. And I was kind of like, oh, they seemed pretty smart to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so to get us back on football track a little bit here, there's it's weird because we always do these Friday shows before the injury report comes out.
Right.
With the time zone change and all that, we do have the injury report. The interesting big news today and yesterday was that Tyreek Stevenson hurt his calf in practice, and he is doubtful. And when asked about it, Matt Eberflus wasn't even sure if he's going to even test it out on Sunday. It's going to come down to how he's feeling Saturday and Sunday when he gets up in the morning. They could be without Tyreek Stevenson, and of course, Jaquan Brisker was ruled out earlier this week with a concussion. So the Bears might be down 2 starters in the secondary.
Yeah, I think this is going to be really interesting. We'll dive into it a little bit more when we do our matchups and that sort of stuff. But it's been something that I've kind of been talking about the last couple of weeks, where like the Bears defense has done a good job of bending but not breaking. And a lot of the opposing quarterbacks they faced off against have been able to get up the passing yards on them. Like they've been able to pick up a bunch of yards and get down the field. So listen, it'll be interesting, especially since I know Terrell Smith is obviously he's not in right now with a hip injury. So you've got, I wouldn't say depleted, but I think that you've got maybe not, they are confident in Hicks and that kind of stuff, but you don't have your full secondary going against Trevor Lawrence, who I know everyone's going to be like, well, Trevor Lawrence isn't playing to the, the godly expectations he had, but he's still throwing the ball pretty well. So that's going to be a really interesting matchup just to see how the secondary lines up and whether they're able to make those final plays like they have in the last couple of weeks before.
Yeah, that's the other key part of all this. If Tyreek does indeed miss this game, um, yeah, Terrell Smith is also hurt. You know, he's been out with the hip injury, and um, he didn't even travel here. So
Right.
that's your top cornerback. That's a guy who is like actually starter caliber. Like that's where you're at with this Bears defense. Is they got guys who can start who are sitting on the bench. You know,
Right.
he might start for a bunch of other teams in the league. But you don't have him, so you're looking at Jalen Jones probably starting. You also have Josh Blackwell if you need. You know, Blackwell has been more of a slot, a nickel,
Yeah.
or at least he was during training camp. So he's more of Kyler Gordon's backup specifically. So I would expect to see Jalen Jones on the outside, and then you're looking at maybe a couple. They might bring one or two guys up from the practice squad. You got Amir Speed and Reddy Stewart down there. But yeah, once if another guy goes down, you're gonna get really thin really quick.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest concern right now, especially since like you don't have your whole plethora of guys, right? Like obviously they can't fly over or like come over to the game or anything like that. So that'll be really interesting just to see, how that develops. It doesn't seem like Stevenson is going to play based on what you said, obviously with Eberflus earlier in the day. So that's definitely going to be something to keep an eye on, and it definitely kind of changes the way I kind of look at this game.
Calf injuries are a little bit scary too. I mean, those are the ones where like I mean if he strained his calf in practice like that, those are the nagging ones, and you've seen that across the league. Like you got to be careful with those because they're they're connected to the Achilles and all this stuff, and so I personally would be surprised if he plays. That doesn't mean that it can't happen. It certainly could. The only other real injury note is that Tevin Jenkins is questionable with that ankle injury. He injured his ankle last week. I would expect if he doesn't play, we'll see Bill Murray again at that left guard spot, leave Matt Pryor over on the right side. That's what they did last week. I don't see why they would change that. But there's also a chance that Tevin plays. He was limited when he did practice. He sat out one day. He was limited twice. I don't know. We'll see. That's going to kind of depend on how he feels.
Do you feel like that's something that, I know that the Jaquan Brisker thing is a little bit different. Obviously, it's a concussion. You take, head injuries very seriously,
Yeah.
especially for him. I think he had like one each the previous 2 seasons. But do you feel like for Stevenson and even for Jenkins, is there the mentality of like, let's not push it. Like we have the bye week next week. Like let's just let it rest up and he'll be ready to go in a couple weeks. Do you feel like, they can, and especially with that, it seemed like Bill Murray actually provided a good boost for them once he got into the game. So is it one of those things where it's like, if it's not like dramatically going to be different with the performance on the field, do you just kind of play on the safer side? And you're like, well, let's let him rest. He'll have a whole bye week and he'll be ready to go in a couple weeks against the Commanders.
I think that's a really good point. I guess for both those guys,
Yeah.
But especially with on the offensive line, like you saw Bill Murray for some reps last week, and there seemed to be no drop off. And so, yeah, I think you would feel pretty confident putting him in there just for a spot start, give Tevin an extra day off or an extra week off, and go into the bye. I mean, you could make the same argument for Tyreek. Obviously, we don't really know how bad that calf injury is, but the only thing that makes you nervous is you haven't seen the depth of that secondary tested as much as we have with the offensive line early on this season. So obviously you always want your best guys out there, but man, this secondary, I mean, Tyreek and Jaquan, as far as your hard hitters, like those are your guys in the secondary. And so I know Elijah Hicks is likely to be the starter in place of Jaquan, and he's a guy who has a lot of energy too. Thinking back to that day he was drafted, he had that video where he dropped the phone and started doing push-ups when he learned it. And he brings a similar energy, but obviously just doesn't have as much, in-game experience as Jaquan.
Yeah, and I'm kind of curious whether that leads to, we'll get the most valuable Bears, but does that lead Jalen Johnson to be more of a leader than he already is, obviously? Or does that give an opportunity for the Jaguars to pick on Hicks and that kind of stuff on the other side of the ball? And so that'll be really interesting to see just what the matchups kind of are here heading into this week, because, the Bears, yes, losing Brisker and losing Stevenson isn't great, but they're not losing Sweat, Johnson, Tremaine Edmonds, TJ. Like there's still the majority of the defense is still there. So it'll be interesting to see how much of the cat and mouse game kind of comes into this with the matchups and the weather. Jacksonville and Doug Peterson try to, exploit maybe some weaknesses here and there offensively.
That's a great point. I mean, it could be worse. You could be talking. I mean, Tyreek's off to a good start, and he played really well his rookie season. But you're not completely depleted. You got some guys back there still, and same thing on the offensive line. Like, they looked pretty good with Bill Murray. Yeah. If you guys are listening after the fact, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, do us a favor and leave us a review. We would really appreciate that. And keep an eye out on our Twitter pages. We'll let you know when we're going to go live. If you want to come join the show, see our faces on the screen. Today, you can see the back of behind me. You can see the hotel room. See what I'm dealing with here in London. You can see Michael's bookshelf, and we can talk some Bears. Michael, let's get into this Jacksonville matchup. We'll start with the game within the game. What's the position battle or the one-on-one matchup you're watching in this game?
Well, I think for me, the biggest thing is Trevor Lawrence versus the secondary, right? I think it's going to be really interesting. Like, I think everyone, with the whole Trevor Lawrence thing, I think everyone is fixated with the record, and obviously he hasn't lived up to his expectations. But the Jaguars are still throwing the ball really well. Watching the tape against the Texans and the Colts, they're picking up their yards and they're getting their big plays. They just haven't been able to capitalize on some instances, and obviously the defense hasn't really. The defense is giving up a bunch of yards and giving up a bunch of opportunities. So you know what it's like when it's hard when the defense doesn't get off the field and then the offense is forced to play hero ball a lot. But I'm really interested in that matchup just based on the injuries. I was already going to talk about this heading into this matchup, but with the injuries, does Kevin Byard step up even more than he did last week and he has this year? Does he make more of an impact? Does does Hicks kind of step up? And so does Kyler Gordon continue to play with the explosiveness he's kind of played with so far this season? So I'm really interested just to see what is Matt Eberflus. I've seen some guys comment in the group that everyone's confident that Matt Eberflus is going to be able to keep coming up. But Doug Peterson is a good mind too. So I'm very curious to see just what the cat and mouse game is going to be between the secondary and whether Trevor Lawrence is going to be able to exploit it at all. Because, he's faced some good defenses. Obviously, he's played the Texans. The Colts are fine, I guess. But I'm curious to see what his game kind of looks like against the top 5 defense like the Bears.
Yeah, I think this will be I think for every quarterback the Bears face, this defense is one of the toughest tests they'll see all year. Yeah. And even with a couple of starters out, if the Bears are a little banged up, I think that still is true. I think that's still the case. And you look at just looking at the numbers, Jacksonville, they rank 24th in the red zone offensively. And so this could be a situation where, similar to what we've seen with Carolina, and especially in that Rams game, where it's okay if a team's, obviously you don't want to give up any points, but if you're getting stops in the red zone, that's a good thing. That helps you win football games if you hold teams to 3 points. And this could be one of those situations where that's exactly what the Bears do. Maybe it is a bend don't break type of week where that your offense can score against a really, really bad defense on the other side. And the Jaguars have a really, really bad defense. I mean, statistically, one of, if not the worst in the league. And I know we're saying that a lot, but the Carolina, the Rams, like, there's been a bunch of teams during this stretch that are really bad defensively.
And that was the major key to the Rams win, right? It was like the Rams and Matthew Stafford kept getting into the red zone, but they had to settle for field goals. So you've seen it, and obviously that was a healthy Bears defense and that sort of stuff. But you've seen it from this defense. So it'll be interesting to see whether that continues, especially for, I don't want to call it ineptitude, but just like the lack of success for the Jaguars that they've had in the red zone. It'll be interesting to see whether the Bears are able to continue that streak moving here on Sunday.
Yeah, and that Jaguars offense too, 30th on third downs. Like they're if they get in those, you can get them into those third and long situations and force them to have to make big plays to keep the chains moving. Yeah. I'll bring up my game within the game. I also, have the Bears secondary on one side, but I was specifically going with Brian Thomas Jr., the rookie wide receiver for the Jaguars. He's coming off a really, really good game. Honestly, he's played well all season to start the year. He's looked really, really good. He's the rookie out of LSU. Coming out, he was one of those guys who the story on him was that he was pretty raw relatively compared to some of the other guys. You know, Rome Odunze played a lot of football in college, and Brian Thomas has had all the tools. Looks like he could be a good receiver, but you know, didn't have as much track record of production over the long haul of his college career. Well, he's come out and I mean, he is a deep ball threat. I was talking to Kevin Byard and Jalen Johnson about him yesterday. And yeah, like the speed and the deep ball threat is absolutely there with him. And you've seen it. I mean, what did he score? Like an 80+ yard touchdown a week or two? Makes you a little nervous when you got two guys out in the secondary.
Yeah, it definitely does. So I think that'll be interesting to see whether they, where are they going to put him? Are they going to put him against Jalen Johnson? Are they going to put him on the opposite side of the field of him? I think that'll be really interesting to watch the schematics of that and who they're playing him against. Because if you put him against Jalen has obviously shown an ability to shut down the best wide receivers in the league, right? So, but if you put him on the opposite side, does that kind of give him some opportunities and, risk some things. So I think that'll be really interesting just to, obviously just to see how the Bears are able to eliminate him, but, where is he lining up on what side of the field and how much an impact that will make?
Yeah. And, I think that comes down to too, like how comfortable are you if Jalen Jones is the starter on the other side? What's your comfortability with him? Do you want him having to move? The Bears don't typically have their cornerbacks. They don't, even though Jalen's an elite cover guy, they don't often put him on one wide receiver. That's not something that they like to do. And they like to keep those guys comfortable on their side of the field. And yeah, it kind of comes down to like, where is Jalen Jones most comfortable? Because you also don't want to put your weakness in a tougher spot. But overall, I mean, you talk about Brian Thomas Jr. I honestly, I feel like he's the only guy who really scares me on a Jaguars offense.
Yeah, I would probably say that, and other than Trevor Lawrence, I think those are the.
Yeah.
But then again, with Trevor Lawrence, like he throws interceptions. I think this is one of those interesting things where it's like, do the Bears continue their run of forcing at least one turnover per game? Like, it's been like 2 turnovers for except one game. So that'll be really interesting to watch as well. Are they able to, kind of continue their success? Is the defensive line able to get after this, get after Lawrence? You saw, if you watch the Colts tape, they're able to kind of make him uncomfortable a couple times and, get them and finish the job and get a sack or lead to an incompletion on 3rd and long. So it'll be really interesting to see, does Billings do Billings and Dexter continue to have their strong play up the middle? Is Montez a threat? And obviously does DeMarcus Walker and Darrell Taylor, are they able to do what they did the first, portion of the year? So that'll be really interesting as well. The whole turnover battle, that's been the key for the Bears right now. They don't commit turnovers, and they've had at least a few turnovers. So if they're able to make Trevor, make a few mistakes here or there, that can make a really big difference in this game.
Robert in the chat says that he's watching Darnell Wright against Trayvon Walker is the edge rusher, the former number 1 pick a couple of years back. He had 3 sacks last week against the Colts. Now, old man Joe Flacco is a little bit easier to catch than slippery Caleb Williams, I would say. Right. But I mean, that's not to take anything away from that. You have 3 sacks in the game. That's pretty legit. Right. That's a matchup to watch too. Of course. I mean, you have Josh Allen Hines. I'm sorry, Josh. What's his name now? Josh Hines Allen.
Yeah,
get that right. The former guy who, well, he still is Josh Allen, but the one everybody got confused with the other Josh Allen.
Right. Yeah.
And now, of course, I screwed up his name, so that probably doesn't say, that's not good for me. But yeah, both those guys are really, really stingy in there. And if you're glad that your tackles aren't hurt, but of course, if you're putting Bill Murray out there, that makes you a little nervous. If just the whole cohesiveness across the offensive line, those guys are going to be tough. That's certainly another good one to watch.
And Sean, I'll be honest, I do want to see more from the tackles. I want to see, everyone was really big on Darnell Wright, and I think for good reason in his rookie season. But I would say you've kind of seen a little bit of a sophomore slump. Obviously, he's not bad by any means, but there have been mistakes around on what he's been able to do. And for Braxton Jones, I feel like we've talked a lot of, like you and I talk a lot about him when we're together covering games.
Mm-hmm.
He's getting bull rushed. He's, whoever's facing off against him on the other side of the line is just making it look easy against him right now. So I'm kind of wanting to see more from the tackles because I think Shelton had his best game last week. You saw that he was able to get downfield, make some key blocks. You've seen improvement from him.
Mm-hmm.
The guards have done fairly well. Once you got Pryor in there and you saw a limited opportunity for Bill Murray, but for the tackles, I think you want to see more from Darnell Wright, but you definitely want to see more from Braxton Jones because if you're not seeing improvement from him, you're probably taking a left tackle early in the draft. And I think this will be a really good opportunity to see whether Braxton's able to make those adjustments or whether he's just going to continue to play the way he has for much of the season.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Michael. And two, just thinking about the O-line overall and the depth, I do wonder if I should have maybe been thinking about this week, but I do wonder if after the bye week could be an opportunity for Ryan Bates to come back. You just think of the extra time off. We obviously don't really know how bad his shoulder injury is, but he's a guy we expect to come back at some point and yeah, maybe take over that right guard spot or wherever. But you're right. Like Coleman Shelton's played well in that center spot, and you do want to see a little bit more from those tackles. This will be another good matchup, at least the one-on-one matchups that we could see for those guys against this Jaguars defensive line. Even though the Jaguars defense is not playing well as a group, like that's definitely a good game within the game to keep an eye on. We're gonna. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say that they have good rushers, and
yeah,
I wouldn't take it too lightly.
They definitely do. Okay, our MVB, most valuable bear. Here's the situation, guys. I'm up 3-2, but I've lost back-to-back weeks. Michael's on a hot streak. I get to go first this time. We established that you can only pick the quarterback 3 times each. Michael used one of his 3 last week. So you gotta be a little strategic. You don't want to necessarily pick the quarterback the week that they're going against a good defense, right. But they're not this week. It's my pick first, and I'm taking Caleb Williams. I'm using one of my 3 Caleb Williams picks. I think he's gonna have a really good game. This Jaguars defense is one of the worst against the pass. That secondary, I mean, no offense to any of those guys, but you look at the depth chart and it's kind of like, I don't, there's a lot of names on there who are either I'm not super familiar with or guys who were, maybe big names a few years back. And you wonder what's, it doesn't seem like a huge surprise that they're giving up passing yards in chunks. I think Caleb Williams is going to have a really good game. I think he spreads it out to his receivers. I think that connection with DJ Moore that we saw last week is only going to continue. I'm going with Caleb Williams for my most valuable bear.
I think that's a good pick. I think you're seeing the growth, right? Like you're seeing both on and off the field. Like I heard the conversations this week about how DJ Moore talked about on Wednesday about how Caleb's more assertive now. Obviously, he called him the little brother, but like he's acting a little bit older and that sort of stuff and more assertive. And I think that's exactly what you want to see from Caleb at this point. You're seeing it on the field and you're seeing it in his leadership as well. And you can see that he's getting that confidence right now. And this is a great opportunity to build off of what they did last week. I probably would have chose him if I had the opportunity. Maybe I wouldn't have because I don't want to burn that chance right now. But I expect Caleb to have a really big day. I expect him to probably throw for more 300 yards. And he should look really good against the defense that just quite honest, just against the pass is not very good.
They are not. And Weather on the go, thanks for joining us. He jumps in and says Caleb is developing well early, making good reads, good passes. We just need to keep the pocket clean. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's it. Like they were able to do that last week against the Panthers defensive line that was not very impressive. And we'll see if they can do that this week against a couple of dudes who are a little bit tougher. Mike Johnson has taken Tremaine Edmonds as his most valuable bear. Let's see. I don't know if Weather is picking Rome, but he wants to get Rome going. I saw Robert earlier in the chat saying he's got Rome as his most valuable bear. Michael, who you got?
I'm trying to. I like your Caleb pick, and I'm going to go with the receiver because of that. I just don't know whether to go with Rome or DJ. because I feel like they've been alternating, right? I feel like the team I know that the opposing teams just don't watch the previous week's tape. Obviously, they look at all the tape they have available. But I feel like there's been this fluctuation of like Rome has a good game, and then DJ is just kind of in the background used as a
Yeah.
decoy. Then the following week, Rome is used as a decoy, and obviously DJ has a big game. So I'm tempted to just go with Rome, right? I think that, DJ had a huge game last week, and I'm sure that the Jaguars will, probably hone in on DJ. So, but then again, I'm not encouraged by this past defense. So I'll get off the fence. I'll choose Rome. I think Rome is going to be my most valuable bear. I think he's gonna build off that good game that he had against I think it was the Colts, and I think he's gonna build off of that. So I think it's his week to have a good week. Maybe Keenan Allen might get in there. I don't know. I think we've kind of seen them slowly progress in there. And I don't think he'll be a long threat, but I could see it happening too. But I'm gonna go with Rome.
Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with any of those wide receivers, especially DJ or Rome. Yeah, we haven't really seen Keenan have a huge game yet. He was still kind of working his way back from the foot injury.
Right.
I think, I feel like Rome is one of those like fantasy players you have on your team that either scores 20 points or scores like 5. And you're like, I don't really know what to do with this guy, at least early on. That might change as he gets a little bit more familiarity, as he gets a little bit more experience. He could be a guy who has a really good second half of the year, but I like that pick. And Rick in the chat is going with the Bears fans in London as his most valuable Bears. I like that. That's a good one too. I'm a big fan of that one.
Yeah.
Surprise prediction. What are you thinking? What's your surprise prediction for Sunday's game?
I think my surprise prediction is I think Trevor Lawrence has 3 touchdown passes, but the Bears still win the game. I'm sure this Bears secondary will show me wrong, but I think that Trevor Lawrence can get it going a little bit toward the end. Like, I think it'll be a game where the Bears lead early. I don't think it's going to be a Carolina deficit, but I do think that the Bears take control of this game early with the strong offense, and then you get like 2 late touchdowns from the Jaguars to make the numbers look better than they are. So I do think that Trevor Lawrence gets 3 touchdowns, but the Bears still win the game.
I can see that. Like, I can absolutely see that happening. I think that's entirely possible. Here's mine. It's funny that we don't talk about these before we jump on and do them. My surprise prediction was going to be and still is, and it's funny after hearing yours. The Bears secondary will be fine. They'll be fine. It's gonna be okay. You're out a couple of starters. You got some experience. Elijah Hicks is an experienced backup. Jalen Jones, an experienced backup. Elijah more than Jalen, but you got guys who have played. You've still got Jalen. You've still got Kevin Byard. You've still got Kyler Gordon. They're gonna be fine. Yes, Trevor Lawrence is a really hot and cold quarterback. He can have those really big games, and then he can have those really bad games. I'm betting on this being one of those things where the Bears pass rush is going to be all over the place. They're going to make it hard on him. I don't think Trevor has a good game this weekend, and I think the Bears secondary is fine.
I think it'll be interesting too. We didn't get a chance to talk about this, but the Jaguars just got there this morning, and I'm really interested to see the difference in. Obviously the Bears have been there since Tuesday. The Jaguars got a little late because of the hurricane. Obviously, part of me is like, well, you knew the hurricane was coming. Why wouldn't you just leave earlier? But that's a different argument, and I'm not going to get into the Jaguars logistics or anything like that. But how much does that play a role in this game, right? Where the Bears are used to the time at this point. Hopefully, you'll be used to the time when the game starts. But it's hard. It's real. So I don't know how much are they going to be ready by that time. They're obviously going to be there for another week. And I've heard a lot of people say, I think it's good that the Bears are playing the Jaguars this week as opposed to the next week.
Yeah, Jacksonville, we've mentioned it before, they're playing back-to-back weeks, so they got a whole nother week here. And yeah, I know these teams have some, they got they're some really smart people trying to figure out all the logistics of bringing their whole operation over. I mean, I can't imagine what the Bears had to do to figure that out, to get here all week and have everything that they need to at their their $200 million practice facility. You can't bring the whole building. And so you got to figure all that stuff out. And I think, with Jacksonville playing back-to-back weeks, I'm sure it's just like they don't want to be away from home for 2 full weeks. And I get that.
Right.
I get why you wouldn't do it, but yeah, you're right. Like the hurricane was forecast
We knew it was
plenty
coming.
of days ahead. You know, you
Yeah.
knew it was coming, and I know it really blew up on Monday, and maybe I'm sure that is a lot harder to leave earlier is a lot harder than to leave later, and so I'm sure they have good reasons for why they did that. But yeah, according to the tweet, I don't know exactly what time they got in, but they tweeted that they had arrived at 4 a.m. Friday morning London
Yeah.
time, and they canceled practice Friday. They're practicing Saturday, which is pretty unusual when it's a Sunday game. They don't usually do that unless you're playing on Thursday night, and that's not a lot of time for your body to get used to this.
No, it isn't. Like I remember, I've traveled a couple times across the Atlantic, and you don't really get used to it until like 4 or 5 days into it. Like you start to feel a little bit normal.
Yeah.
Like I feel like on day three, but like fully, like you don't really get into it like 5 days into it, and so it'll be interesting to see how much that plays a role. And like you said, like you don't want to be away from home for 2 weeks, but it might likely be a factor for the Jaguars when they play on Sunday.
Robert asks how the jet lag has been for me. Thanks for asking, Robert. Day one was rough. Yesterday was my first full day here. Today's been better, and tomorrow is going to be fine. I think I'll be pretty normal tomorrow. So it hasn't been too bad, honestly. Just a little tired that first day. Rick, we're getting London questions now. Rick asks the best and worst thing I've eaten. Like I said, yesterday was my first full day. I was kind of out of it too. So my food experiences were not great. I ate dinner at Wembley Stadium, which also for any Bears fans out there listening who are going to be at the game, be glad that this game is at Tottenham because the food at Wembley was not great. Man, I don't have good reviews for that. Robert says, could I play a game tomorrow?
This is valid experience. This is very valid.
This is actually, yes, we're right in that window where if I'm on the Jaguars, my body clock is playing a game tomorrow at 2:00. I could. Would I be peak performance? I don't think so. I really don't think so, but I could do it.
Well, you also didn't fly probably like first class over and got the
yeah, I'm sure they got. I mean, they come here every year. They know what they're doing. I'm sure they got the flight figured out. Rick asked the weather. Not too rainy actually. It's been cloudy. Nice during the day. A little cool, chilly here and there, but no rain really. Although I did see game time is the last forecast I saw was 52 degrees, and cloudy, so a little chilly. But I don't think any rain is in the forecast.
Is Tottenham Hotspur, is that like covered or is it do they have like an opening? I'm trying to remember.
It's open in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah, it's open in the middle, and that was a cool thing at Wembley last night too. Is the way these soccer stadiums are built. Yeah, a lot of them just have the opening in the middle, but we were all covered, and not that it was raining or anything, but most of that crowd would have been dry if it was raining.
Yeah.
Okay, let's make our picks, Michael. Bears Jaguars. We've both kind of hinted at where we're at, but what are you feeling? Who are you picking to win this game?
I'm choosing the Bears, and I'm trying to decide how much the secondary is really going to matter in this matchup. I don't think it's not going to be a Carolina win. I don't think that Carolina is just bad. They're not a good football team, and you take care of business what you need to do. But I do think that this Bears offense will be able to score. I think the Jaguars will take advantage of their opportunities. Mike actually just kind of said my score. I'm going to do 32-21.
Yeah, sure he did.
Yeah, he
Mike's stealing.
I was thinking 32. I think the Jaguars are going to be able to score a little bit here, so I'll go with the 32-21 game. Bears win comfortably toward the end, but I think this offense is clicking heading into the bye week, and I think a lot of Bears fans are going to be encouraged by what they see from Caleb Williams.
I think we're kind of on the same page here as well with Mike. I was going to go 31-23. I think that's 2 touchdowns, 3 field goals for the Jaguars.
Yeah.
I do think it could be, like we said earlier, bend don't break. Maybe they give up a couple of field goals in this game. I think Jacksonville will score. I'm not saying the Bears are going to totally shut him down, but I think the secondary will be, considering that you're out potentially two guys, I think they'll be fine. I think that the Bears will be able to score enough points to get by the Jaguars. I got them winning 31-23.
Yeah, I think you and I are on the same page, at least where it's like they should win comfortably. And like again, like we were talking about the Carolina game, I'm not going to call this a must-win game, but this is a game you need to win if you're going to try to make the playoffs. This is a game you need to take advantage of the opportunity. You need to head into the bye at 4-2, get your rest, and get ready for a tough Commanders game when you come back. And listen, like the second half of that schedule hasn't gotten worse based on what we've seen so far this season.
The Vikings, I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean the schedule. Like I know a lot of times it's like, oh, we didn't expect this team to be bad or like this team to be good. That second half of the schedule is tough, if not tougher, with the Vikings and that sort of stuff. So you need to pick up the wins here as much as you can if you're trying to make the playoffs, because it's going to be really tough heading into the second half.
It is going to be really tough. And I mean, even like the Seahawks have been pesky and obviously the 49ers, the win-loss record isn't maybe where you thought it would be, but they're the 49ers. They got dudes everywhere. You throw in all those division games. It's going to be a tough end of the season. You're right. They got to beat the bad teams. And the Jaguars are 1-4. That's a bad team so far. That's what they've been. Thank you guys all for joining us live. We really love doing this with you. Robert says this podcast always has me pumped for the game. We're happy to help you get pumped, Robert. We really love talking with you guys too on our Mondays and Fridays. We're going to try to do 10 a.m. Mondays and Fridays every week. Although I should say, I don't think we're going to have one on Monday with me in London and everything. I think we're going to have to take a break till after the bye, but we will let you know when we're going live. Keep an eye out on our Twitter pages. I'm at Sean_Hammond. He is at mdwojak94. Head to shawlocal.com. You can read all of our stuff there. Please consider subscribing. That is the number one best way to support us. You can also just hit the thumbs up button. That's a good way to support us too. Did a little thumbs up just come? Did
you do that?
I've never done that before.
What is this?
I'm not hitting any buttons. This is a feature that I was unaware of. Yeah, you try it.
Why is it not working for me?
Maybe try moving it forward and back a little bit or something. I don't know. I guess it's.
This is going to be a meme somewhere now. I don't know.
I'll try to do it again. Let's see. Here we go. Oh, yep, there it is. Oh, yeah, hit the thumbs up.
All right.
Hit the thumbs up, support the show. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, do us a favor, leave us a review. And like I said, look out for our look out on our Twitter pages. We'll let you know when we're going live. He's Michael Dwojak. I'm Sean Hammond. This has been the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and enjoy the game.